from the blackest corners of your mind, they call, pulling you deep into shadow, twisting your senses, keeping you from sleep. It's time to face your darkest fears. This is Tales to Terrify. Good evening, children of the night, and welcome to 2025. We have a pair of tales to kick off the new year. First, we finally discover the real reason the chicken crossed the road. Then, a girl fascinated with the spiders in her old home invites a friend over for a visit after school. Our first story for the evening comes from Frank Oreto. Frank Oreto is a writer of weird and horrific fiction living in the wilds of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His work has appeared in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, Flame Tree Press, and the year's best hardcore horror. When not writing, Frank creates elaborate meals for his wife and ever-hungering children. Children of the night, join me for Frank Oreto's The Other Side, a Tales to Terrify original.
His had not been a big life. He pecked up a hard, dry piece of corn almost by instinct. The smell of the blood-soaked earth filled him, and he dropped the food from his beak. A small life, then, hemmed in by rough-hewn wood and rust-flecked wire mesh. But even a small life has its pleasures. His woman, warm, loving, and soft with feathers, and of course, the glory of the song. His voice strong and exultant, calling up to the sun, singing a new day into existence. Now, all gone. A section of gate left askew. An attack, the beast who'd constantly sniffed and growled at their walls, finally inside, all stinking fur and yellow daggered teeth. The tall one, bringer of food and taker of children, shouting, "Spot, no!" rushing in, pulling the mad beast away. All too late. His women lay torn and bloody beneath the blue summer sky, their eggs shattered in their nests. He'd tried. With beak and spurs, he'd attempted to defend his family. Something in his rushing blood reminding him his steps had once shook the earth, and the furry things had been his sustenance. But all that was in some distant, forgotten place, and his attacks had gone unnoticed. He gazed through the open wall to where the grass ended, and the ground became a thin black ribbon. There, enormous beasts, their carapaces glinting in the summer sun, raced to and fro, roaring their war cries. I was once like you. He lifted his head and joined his own cry with theirs, filling it with all the pain and anguish he had inside him, but with something else, too, a tangled mixture of madness and hope. He walked from his old, small life towards the mad beasts who traversed the black band. He would cross that dark ground, facing down the shining monsters that traveled it. Then, triumphant, he would lift his voice and sing a new world into creation, one where his kind once again bestrode the world as masters, and the furred things, and even the tall one who brought food and took children would flee before him, seeking a place to hide, a place they would not find. He ran, not knowing if it was toward his death or his destiny. Lifting his wings, he could almost fly. By the big white house, the farmer clipped the chain to Spot's collar. "Damn fool dog," he muttered, and looked back towards the chicken coop. He watched as the rooster suddenly rushed from a gap in the coop's wall. Wings flapping, it rushed full tilt into the busy road that fronted the farm, dodging past honking semi-trucks as it sped across the road. The farmer stood scratching his head. Now why on earth is he doing that?
That was Frank Oreto's The Other Side, as read by Seth Williams. Seth Williams is the managing editor here at Tales to Terrify. He's narrated stories for Tales to Terrify, Far-Fetched Fables, and Starship Sofa. When not day jobbing, he enjoys listening to fiction podcasts and audio drama. He shares life with an amazing partner, dog, and a cat. Thank you, Seth. Our second tale tonight comes from Bree Wernicke. Bree Wernicke is an actor and speculative fiction writer from Los Angeles. Her short stories have been published in Fusion Fragment, Baffling Magazine, Metastellar, and more. Listen with me, children of the night, to Bree Wernicke's Spider Kiss, first published in Neon, May 2022.
Shadow was most certainly an arachnid. They scurried along the cracking baseboards and made hopeful burrows in fallen curtains. They dropped onto your face as you slept and exploded from drawers when you were just looking for a pair of clean stockings, half asleep, but by God, now you were awake. Pia Pennerell saw at least 4 a day, and she cataloged them all. By the time she was 15, she had amassed a veritable arachnomicon. But as much as she hated finding a spider where she hadn't wanted one, Pia hated finding a new spider even more. She had tracked the behavior, appearance, movement, temperament, etc. of over 20 species, and this gave her a quiet confidence. She knew what to expect in the house. New spiders gave her the hysteria. She'd come across a red-bodied, brown-legged specimen the size of a silver dollar one afternoon on her return from school. It was sauntering across the threadbare carpet in the yellow parlor, bold as a button, and Pia stood there paralyzed. It inched closer and closer to her scuffed-up shoes, front legs waving. She regained her presence of mind and threw a pillow at it. This did nothing. The spider simply walked out from under it and continued its promenade, unbothered. Pia sketched them. Most of her sketches looked the same and were difficult to distinguish, but they made sense to her, and that was what mattered. She marked the spider's movements and their locations. Dusty gray fucks lurked in the upholstery. Tiny red fucks liked the library. Fast, pointy fucks burrowed into anything soft. And long-legged purple fucks were everywhere. They especially liked the seams of rooms, the places where the wallpaper peeled, and where the molding was coming off in chunks. Occasionally, when the maid was slacking, they liked Pia's bed, too. Pia always watched her step and batted her pillows against the wall to dislodge would-be bedfellows. One year, she grew bold enough to experiment. If she swallowed a spider, would it die? Would the bile in her stomach kill it? Right before dinner one night, she stuck her finger in her mouth and retched until she brought up some yellowish stuff into a small bowl. It dripped down the sides a little and stank, but Pia would bear anything to satisfy her curiosity. She shook a recently captured spotty orange fuck out of its jar and into the bowl and watched with interest as it flailed and struggled on the surface of her upchuck. Then the dinner bell rang. Off Pia went. When she returned to the putrid little bowl, the spider was nowhere to be seen. Whether it had been dissolved by the bile or simply had enough skill at swimming to escape, she couldn't tell. Many errors of science hounded her here. One should always keep an eye on one's test subjects and make sure they couldn't escape. She'd have to repeat the experiment in a closed container. Sometimes her best friend Hetty would come over, and Pia would have to pretend the spiders did not exist, that they weren't just waiting in the corners to be cataloged. To force herself not to reach for her notebook in the presence of a guest, Pia focused instead on Hetty, her movements, her gestures, which corner of the dusty sofa she favored, the occasional languor that pulled her eyelids down like a grown-up's. She could not catalog Hetty in her notebook, but she could catalog her on the inside of her skull. So, while they read each other's logic essays aloud to catch errors, Pia inscribed an entry for Hetty in her brain. Features: body about my size, a little taller, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Coloring: brown hair, light skin, typically seen in the navy and white of the school uniform. Movement: humanoid. Location: favors the left side of the striped settee. Behavior: friendly, charming, effusive. Habits: talking, handing me essays to read. Web, if any. No entry. Pia wasn't good at sketching, but neither was Hetty. They started sketching each other rather than reading essays. It was still ostensibly schoolwork, and it was a good way for Pia to add to her catalog. If Hetty was going to be here all the time, and Pia still did not understand why she preferred the Pennerel house to her own bright, besiblinged one, then Pia might as well get to stare at her. In the interest of accuracy, Pia made a concerted effort to improve her artistic ability. One afternoon, Hetty put down her sketchbook and stood up to stretch. She wandered around the parlor, tipping her head back to examine the peeling ceiling fresco, swiping her finger across the moldering mantel, and wiping the dust on the wallpaper. She finally came around behind Pia and leaned over her shoulder. "Oh, is that me?" "Nearly done," Pia murmured. It was a portrait from the shoulders up. The eyes weren't quite right. She'd done something odd to the placement of the facial features early on and had barreled forth with it anyway. She was trying to get the curve of the left cheek just right. "It doesn't quite look like you, but I'm getting better." "That's very nice," Hetty said, and her breath ghosted across Pia's cheek. But then she went back over to the striped settee and held out her own sketch for Pia's inspection. It was the parlor, seen from Hetty's settee, dark and decrepit and badly proportioned, a figure hunched in a nearby chair, blurred and radiant. The pencil had hardly touched that area. "It's not finished," Hetty said, almost embarrassed. "Is that meant to be me?" Pia said. Hetty chewed meditatively on the end of her plate. "I didn't know how to draw you. I felt that everything I tried would be insufficient." Pia wordlessly held up her own bad portrait, and Hetty laughed. "You're brave," she said. "You're so much braver than I am. It frightens me to draw the best part, because what if I mess it up?" "I'm the best part?" Pia said. Hetty said, "Of course." Her mouth grew serious, and Pia wanted to tear a new page from her sketchbook and draw that face. For cataloging reasons. They stared at each other for a moment that lasted too long. Hetty's ears grew red, and she ducked her head, back to sketching. This was interesting information. Now, Pia had to revise her entry on Hetty. Her earlier one had been wildly nonspecific. Features: body about my size, a little taller, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Hair typically in 1 long, strong braid. 2 eyes with intelligence in them. A pleasing nose, a mouth which smiles a lot. Cheeks look very smooth. Coloring: brown hair, light skin. Typically seen in the navy and white of the school uniform. Seen once in a cornflower blue dress at a party, which is a very flattering color. Sometimes whole face goes pink. Sometimes ears go translucent red. Eyes are a dark gray or blue. More observation needed. Movement: humanoid? Assured. As though she's never tripped or made a misstep or made any gesture she didn't intend to make. Location: favors the left side of the striped settee. Occasionally will put her legs in my lap. Occasionally will rest her head on my shoulder. Behavior: friendly, charming, effusive. Absolutely wonderful. Habits: talking, handing me essays to read. Worries the end of her braid between her lips when listening. Web, if any. No entry. When she finished her entry, the visit ending, Hetty gone, and gloom descending, Pia noticed that she hadn't entered any spider sightings yet that day. Normally, there was at least 1 in the morning before school, but now it was a full summer night, and she'd seen none. Worried, she went to a reliable corner, found 1 dusty gray fuck, and felt marginally better. Find the spider. Categorize. Another tally mark on the relevant page. That's what she was good at. Nothing less, nothing more. She did not touch the spiders found in her house, and they did not touch her. But Hetty, whose entry in Pia's head had quickly migrated to the back of her notebook, did. She'd link their hands, warm, and wrap her arms around Pia's waist, also warm, and lay her head on Pia's shoulder, though she was taller than Pia, and it ought to have been the other way around. Pia remembered these things and wrote them all down, too. Once, as an experiment, and possibly out of impatience, she laid her own head down, and Hetty gave a little gasp of delight, and then brought her hand up around Pia's face and stroked her cheek. Her fingers were warm and dry. Pia's eyes rolled back in bliss, and Hetty said, "Aren't we cute?" Pia hummed. Hetty said, "If we were at a ball, would you dance with me?" "Of course," Pia said. "You'd be the first I'd dance with. You'd be the only." Hetty giggled. And then they did dance. In the dreary entrance hall, school shoes slipping over cracked parquet, twirling each other with no regard for who was leading, who was following, or what the dance even was. They were moving together and singing under their breath, and Hetty's hands were warm against Pia's own, and it was perfect. Then Hetty left, and Pia could not catch her breath all night. Pia's mother, Marnda, appeared finally at breakfast one morning. Normally, Pia saw her around once a month, and normally she wore loud clackety shoes that presaged her appearance. But now Pia didn't have enough time to hide what she was doing before Marnda, in slippers, materialized in the breakfast room and sneered at her notebook. "What's that, daughter?" "Schoolwork," Pia said, guiltily flipping the book closed. She was in the middle of observing a lazy crimson fuck, which was taking a desultory interest in the bowl of stewed tomatoes. "Schoolwork," Marnda repeated in a high, sing-songy voice. She sat at the table and picked up a bread roll. "I had not known you were so scholarly. Look me in the eye," she said petulantly, and Pia did so. "Thank you. Manners. Who's that girl who keeps coming over here?" Pia picked at her wibbly egg. "My friend Hetty, from school." "Your friend Hetty, from school." Pia chose not to respond to this. Marnda chewed up the bread roll, mouth open, and helped herself to some stewed tomatoes. Pia looked for the spider she had been cataloging, to continue cataloging it in her head. It was gone. She put the tines of her fork into a glob of butter, then pressed them to her tongue. "Manners," Marnda said, leering across the table. There were still bits of stewed tomato on her teeth. One of the bits moved and crawled down onto her tongue, then back out of sight. Pia bit down hard on her fork in shock. The recategorizing she would have to do, the notes she would have to make. She stared dumbly at Marnda's mouth through the ensuing lecture, but the spider did not reappear. The only thing that came out of her mouth was a spray of spittle with every fricative. That afternoon, Hetty came back to the house because Pia didn't have the heart to tell her not to. This time, Hetty found out about the spiders. Pia had been doing an excellent job of hiding them, of redirecting Hetty's attention at salient moments, of squatching a scray, quick spotty fuck when she saw it racing across the floor towards Hetty's school bag. Hetty's house was bright and clean and small and had no spiders. Pia knew dimly in the back of her mind that people who did not live with spiders screamed to see them. They howled, affrighted, and beat at them with the nearest empty shoe. If Hetty saw a spider, she wouldn't want to come to Pia's house anymore, and then what would Pia do? "Good afternoon, Mrs. Pennerell," Hetty said with a gorgeous curtsy. That was the thing about Hetty. She was always so good-mannered. "I don't believe we've ever met." "Lady Pennerell," said Marnda, sucking her teeth. "We haven't." She stood gruesomely in the archway for a couple of minutes, watching as they sketched in silence, beshadowed against the gaping, drafty hall beyond, and then she turned and left them alone with a severe sweep of skirts. Hetty laughed. "Piece of work, your mother." Pia had never met any other mothers to compare Marnda to. "Is she?" "You know," Hetty said, archly examining Pia, "it's a wonder she produced you. So sweet and charitable a person out of so—" She waved a hand at the archway, and Pia desperately wanted to know what she would have said, but didn't want to ask. "Are you done yet?" she said instead, and craned her head to peer over Hetty's shoulder at the drawing. Hetty leaned back into her with a happy little sound and offered up her sketchbook for perusal. Spiders. A full page of them. "What's this?" Pia said, trying not to let her voice tremble. "Insects?" "Arachnidae," Hetty said, not without relish. "I saw one skittering across the floor over there." She pointed toward the great marble fireplace. "And I got ideas. Riffed off the first one. It was productive." Pia took the sketchbook to look better. Hetty's drawings were sure and quick, and she didn't have much of a sense of scale. Every spider was at least as long as Pia's pinky finger, and they all overlapped each other. The page writhed with them. Spider fangs, spider eyes, spider talons, spider limbs, 7 amusingly rendered spider fundaments. "Oh," Hetty said, in a strange tone of voice Pia had never heard before. "What's this?" Pia looked up too late. Hetty had taken Pia's own notebook in which she'd inscribed her spider sightings, and Hetty herself. It was too late to coyly insist she didn't open it. Hetty was flipping through the pages with interest, reading some and skimming others. "You catalog spiders?" Hetty said. Pia could only nod and stare, pinned to her seat by her own hot, rising shame. Hetty had flipped to the blank pages, and any hope she would stop there was roundly dashed by her peeling through to the back cover. She looked at it. Unguarded delight crossed her face. "Pia," she said, "you've cataloged me?" "I catalog," said Pia, trying vainly to maintain her dignity. "Anything that appears in this house, it's—" Hetty held up a hand. "Don't make excuses. You catalog spiders and me." One exception does not mean you have to expand your definition. So therefore, by the transitive property, am I a spider? "I don't think so," Pia said. "Then what am I?" "What kind of question?" "You're my friend. By hypothetical syllogism, if I am not friends with spiders, and you are my friend, then you are not a spider." Less than half of that was hypothetical, Hetty said, but she stood up. "I am bored. Make me a spider. What? She gestured to herself, all compact, normal human being of her. Pia, turn me into a spider. This was not a school assignment. What if I can't turn you back again? What's so very great about me as I am that a spider wouldn't be an improvement? Turn me, she repeated, into a spider. Pia wet her lips, though there was no reason to. First, she said, and her voice shook, you would need to be very small. Very, very small. Smaller than my hand. She reached out and pressed down on the top of Hetty's head, feeling her warm brown hair compress slightly under her hand. Hetty giggled. Then, once you were small enough, Pia said, you'd have to grow more limbs, 2 more arms, and 2 more legs. Where? Hetty said, watching her with keen eyes that were maybe gray or maybe blue. Show me. She held out her arms and Pia touched her carefully, one place at a time. On her ribs at the side of her body, under her arms, each side, on the back, between her shoulder blades. These weren't spider geometries, but they would do. Then, boldly, with no thought for correctness, in the round little hollow at the base of her throat. Interesting, Hetty said, and she was close, so close. Her pulse beat under the tip of Pia's finger. What's next, once I'm small and have legs? Then you need an exoskeleton, Pia said. Spider bones are outside their bodies. Well, they're not really bones, she said, but they are a supportive structure. Without it, they'd collapse. Oh? Your skin would crust over and harden. Pia stroked Hetty's collarbone, sliding under the edge of her shirt to do it. Maybe it would grow hairs. Hetty laughed once softly. It has hairs already. They're very small. Then they would stiffen up and grow bigger. You'd need pincers too, or fangs. Her gaze drifted to a spider, a large one, perched on the back of the couch, watching. How many spiders had Pia seen in Penarel House, and how many people? The spiders in the world outnumbered the people in it by an order of magnitude. If there were so many spiders in the world, how did she know people weren't just another kind of spider? How to differentiate species? Reproduction, she thought wildly. Would 2 people lay an egg, and would it hatch into a spider, 7-armed, 1-legged, carapace gleaming, tipped with rough hairs? Did you hear me? Hetty was looking at her impatiently. No, repeat that? I said, how many eyes hath the spider? Want to make sure you don't. 11? 7? Oh, Hetty is close. She has 2. Here, because I like your house or whatever. I like. She has too few eyes where others' eyes would go. For you, but not exactly as a friend. Pia swallowed. You're not my friend? That's not what I meant. I meant that you mean more. If not friend, then why Hetty? If here, then why not spider? And to kiss you. Surely Pia hadn't heard that right. She looked into Hetty's eyes, which were black and faceted, and Hetty took her hand in her own, which was not a hand at all. It was a cunning, hard-shelled appendage covered in stiff hairs. Hetty spoke, and the pincers of her mouth moved, but Pia's blood roared too loud in her ears to hear. I should warn you, Pia said faintly. First and last time. Hetty said, how silly, in a profusion of hisses and clacks, and Pia grabbed her smooth head and kissed her. It was an assault, not a tenderness. Pia kissed her, and she changed her, and changed herself, and they changed each other. Hetty's head collapsed and reformed. Her skin grew slick and hard. Her eyes each split in 2, and then all those in 2 again, and they darkened and globbed around on her face. One arm grappled with Pia's, another wound round her neck, Another scrabbled at her waist. Another pair tangled in her hair and pulled it. Pia changed. Shalesserai cut her cheeks. She grew larger, more solid, more powerful. She shot up in an ecstasy of expansion. She would hit the crumbling ceiling at any moment. She grew so large that Hegre was only a fistful of legs scrabbling at her mouth. True love, Pia thought. She's a spider. This is as close to true love as I am ever going to get. Shush, Pia whispered, and though it wriggled, she pressed it to her mouth as though this were anything other than an act of attempted consumption. The spider wriggled harder, scrabbling against her lips, which parted of their own accord, and its legs scraped against her teeth, her tongue. Pia kissed it and kissed it and kissed it with her whole mouth until the spider stilled, and this shocked her enough that she inhaled and swallowed. The spider went down like a lump. She was very sure that wasn't supposed to happen. There was a perfect frozen moment of undeserved calm. Then Pia began to panic. She stuck her finger down her throat until tears streamed down her cheeks, but nothing surfaced. The tock, tock, tock of Marnda's footsteps sounded in the hall. She appeared in the archway like a disease. "Where's your little friend?" Pia stared at her, frozen, hands stuffed in her mouth. One hiccup made its way out of her chest. Marnda did not blink. "Daughter," she said, "clean up when you're done." And she whirled and talked away. A froth of tiny red fucks hurried after her. Pia sat down very carefully on the grimy parquet and put her head in her hands. This was a dream. This had to be a dream. Her stomach hurgled in response. Something wriggled inside her. Pia opened her mouth and coughed and gagged and retched a spider out onto the floor. It hit with a splat and got to its feet slowly, as though it hadn't a care in this cold and stupid universe. Its body was almost the size of her fist. It was of a coloring Pia hadn't seen before, a dusky blue body with brownish markings on its head. Its short, many-jointed limbs probed across the seams of the parquet almost shyly. Its eyes were black and numerous. Pia drew out her notebook and started a new entry. Features: fist-sized body, 8 legs, 8 eyes. Coloring: dusky blue body, brownish markings on the head, black eyes. Movement: arachnoidal and slow. Location: to be determined. Seen once, voided from my gullet. Behavior: to be determined. Habits: to be determined. Web, if any, no entry. Hegre did not come over again after that day. Over the next few weeks, Pia saw the spider more and more. It would crawl up to her sometimes and soon grew bold enough to crawl on her, sidling through her hair and poking at her skin with the sharp ends of its legs. Pia shuddered at the touch, but did not move to pull it off her. The other spiders in this house, perhaps seeing this or sensing her compliance, began to probe at her too. Penarel House crawled with spiders, and now they crawled all over Pia, too.
That was Bree Wernicke's Spider Kiss, as read by Sarah Mehra. Sarah Mehra is a native New Yorker who currently resides much closer to the Mason-Dixon line than she ever thought possible. When not spending time with her husband and 2 teenagers, she can be found listening to horror podcasts or doing yoga to de-stress from listening to horror podcasts and living with 2 teenagers. Thank you, Sarah. Well, children of the night, the hour is late and we've run out of tales to tell. For now. Tales to Terrify is made possible by the tremendous generosity of our supporters on Patreon and PayPal. Incredible fans like Lestle Baxter, Amanda Carrillo, Amanda Gottfried, and Orion D. Hegre, whose generous support keeps these lights on and flickering ominously. If you're not a supporter, head over to patreon.com/Tales to Terrify. You'll find all kinds of perks, like ad-free episodes, bonus content, and one-of-a-kind collectibles. Every dollar goes back into this show, and we appreciate your support so much. Want another way to support the show that doesn't cost you a cent? Head over to Podchaser, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts and drop us a 5-star review. You'll not only put an unnaturally wide smile on our faces, but help new listeners discover our terrifying tales too. You can show your love of the show out in the world with some Tales to Terrify merch. TalesToTerrify.com/merch will take you to our TeePublic store, where we've got a great collection of creepy custom and curated designs. Tales to Terrify is produced by Seth Williams, Meredith Morgenstern, Andrew Gibson, Crystal Hammond, Spencer Disparty, and myself, Drew Sebastini, with original theme by Nebulous Entertainment. Tales to Terrify is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Join us again next week as we indulge our sanguine appetites with more Tales to Terrify.